Ticket number 16673, adding of T0 intermediate testing interval to SIL calculations. So the intermediate testing interval is a concept related to the safety integrity level calculations, particularly in a safety instrumented system. It plays a role in determining the probability of failure on demand averages and ensuring compliance with functional safety standards. The testing intervals have been added to all component types. So if we come to Instrumented Systems, we select a SIF and come to the SIL Calc Architecture tab. If we expand the input groups and take a look at this input, if we scroll to the right, we now have the flexible test interval and the flexible test coverage. Let's just make a change to the flexible test coverage. We'll change it to 40%. And we'll save the changes. That's now saved. If we close the input groups and update the SIL calculations, if we now do a comparison in the total RRF calculations table with the previous data before we made the changes, we can see there's been changes to the input group PFD, the total PFD, and the total RRF for the custom failure rates. Ticket number 16785. P&IDs appear empty until clicked on. So in the HAZOP Facilitation view, the P&ID list is not displaying the P&ID object IDs and descriptions when the field is being edited. So if we come to the HAZOP module, come to a HAZOP study, we come to the facilitation template. If we click to edit the P&IDs, we can see that the P&ID object IDs and descriptions are being displayed correctly. Ticket number 16778, SIL Calc value endpoints. So we're creating an endpoint that when passing the function hash, it will return all used and calculated values involved in the SIL calculation. So if we come to Instrumented Systems, we'll select a SIF and come to the SIL Calc Architecture. If we come to the light bulb, we can grab the hash value for the SIF. We scroll down to the calculations table. We're going to exclude the external result row because that's entered manually by the user. So if we load Postman and come to QA demo and come down to the SIL Calc values by function, if we enter the hash value for the SIF and click send, it's returned the data. So if we expand on that and scroll down to the PFD input group, let's do a side-by-side comparison. So for the input group, the prior use, we have 1.35 e to the negative 3. For the custom failure rate, we have 7.06 e to the negative 5. And for design basis failure rate, we have 2.70 e to the negative 5. If we then look at the output groups, we have 3.80 e to the negative 3. For custom failure rate, 4.57 e to the negative 4. And design basis failure rate, 4.60 e to the negative 3. Let's take a look at the logic solver. The prior use is 0. Custom failure rate, 2.02 e to the negative 5. And design basis failure rate, 2.02 e to the negative 5 again. If we look at the PFD total, for prior use, it's null. For custom failure rate, 5.47 e to the negative 4. And for design basis failure rate, 4.66 e to the negative 3. Total RRF, prior use is null. Custom failure rate, 1827. And design basis failure rate is 215. Scroll down a little bit further and open the mean time to failure. For prior use, we have 497.55 years. Custom failure rate, 4,628.28 years. And for design basis failure rate, we have 8,352.72 years. Ticket number 16777. Kendo chart category labels reduce usable space and affect readability. So when the category labels in the series charts are too long and there are too many data points, the labels are positioned at an angle to fit within the available space. However, due to their length, this significantly reduces the usable space for the chart, making it difficult to view the data correctly, as we can see in the image below here. So improvements were made to the charts so that when there are many data points, category labels are too long, or the horizontal space is insufficient, the chart type will dynamically switch between columns and bars. So this will ensure better visibility of the series and make category labels more readable without reducing the available space for rendering the chart. So if we come to a chart here, if we reduce the space available, we will see that the columns become bars and the axes will flip. There we go. So there's more space for the labels. If we go the other way and make the window smaller, we can see that the chart rendering alters that way as well. Ticket number 16771. Request to add interlock to auxiliary function parent. So if we come to the system module, we come to the data catalog and the relationships. If we filter the child type ID to auxiliary, you can see here that we have the interlock as a parent. If we come to a unit and expand the interlocks in the object tree and expand this interlock, we can see that we now have auxiliary functions as a child of the interlock. Ticket number 16767. Users can't use contact customer support to show defects in Lightbox window. So there's currently an error in the Lightbox window, which is preventing users from capturing a screenshot of what they would like to report using this workflow. So if we now come to any module and we click on Contact User Support, we click Highlight, we can select various areas and click Next. And we can see they've now been attached to the Lightbox window. All we now need to do is fill in the details to the left and click Submit. Ticket number 16762. Objects from the breadcrumb will not link to the parent objects in the object tree when dragging from breadcrumbs to the object tree. So if we come to Instrumented Systems, we come to a SIF and select an input group. If we grab this input group from the breadcrumb trail now and place it into a different SIF, we should see that the input group gets linked to the second SIF. We can see that input group is now present in both of these SIFs. Ticket number 16761. When saving checklists, SLM continuously gives a value for field last status changed is not a recognizable data field error message. This was happening for the FSA checklists in particular, even though the last changed status data field doesn't exist within that checklist. So if we come to Operate and Maintain, and we come to a SIF, if we click on the checklist that exists, and we edit, we'll change one of the values, we'll just change the status for now to complete, and save changes. We can see that that saves successfully without any errors. If we now come to the FSA module, select a SIS and FSA ID, come to the checklist tab and select a checklist. Let's just add a date for verified on and save changes. And we can see that change has been successfully saved. Ticket number 16759, SIS Development Work. So we've developed a new SIS report, which is grouping by the SIS details, and then the details of any SIFs, and then the details of any I/O devices that exist within the SIFs. So if we come to instrumented systems, if we take a look at this SIS object, 01 gas tab demo SIS, we can see in here we have two SIFs, flame detection and SIF 071619. So if we come to the instrumented systems reports, we have a new report here, SLM SIS SRS report alternate. If we select our site, unit, and the SIS ID that we're after, 01 gas tab demo SIS, and generate the report. If we then come to our download manager, we can see we have the report ready to download here. So if we download the file, if we then open the file, we have the SIS information. If we scroll through there, here is our first SIF, SIF flame detection. So there's the first SIF details. Here's the second SIF, SIF 071619, with all of its details. And now we start all of the I/O properties for those SIFs. Ticket number 16754, request for fields displayed in HAZOP Facilitation table. So we've had a client request for the likelihood with safeguards and the risk ranking with safeguards fields to be displayed in the HAZOP Facilitation view. So if we come to the HAZOP module and we come to our HAZOP study, look at the Facilitation tab. If we scroll down to the HAZOP deviations and scenarios, and scroll across, we can see that we have our likelihood with safeguards column and our risk ranking with safeguards column. You can see the safety, environmental and commercial rows. So let's just update this likelihood with safeguards column, and we should see the values and background colors update accordingly. And we can see that that's been updated successfully. Ticket number 16751, Download Manager. So inside of SLM, we now have a Download Manager. We can see in the top bar here, we have a new icon currently displaying a 1. So if we click the arrow next to it, we can see the available files to download. Here we have an SLM SIF SRS printout. If we click on the icon itself, we can see a table in here with all of the downloads that are available. We can remove items from the download list, or we can simply click Download File. So to add an item to the Download Manager, if we come to the Report section, and we'll add an SLM SIF SRS printout, we select a site, unit and SIS ID and click Generate. Once the background task is completed, if we refresh the screen, we can see we now have a notification up here that we have 2 files available to download. Again, if we click the arrow, we can see our SRS printout available. If we click on there, we can see that the file has been generated, and if we click this button, we can download a PDF copy. Ticket number 16750, update test event workflow to include as found and as left results data. So if we come to a test group and record a test event, let's enter the required fields for step 1. Select test functions. Select 2 tested devices, 2 inputs. Select failed functions. Let's enter our failed function data. Select our failed devices. And now for our failed device data, we've added a section for entering failed device data to allow the user to populate the as found and as left results for the values of the test as they compare to the trip requirements. These new fields can be found here. So let's just add 3% and 5% and click next. Now for step 8, we'll enter the past device data. Here we can see we've added a new section to step 8 of the workflow so the users can enter the as found and as left results for the values of the test as they compare to the trip requirements for the devices that passed. Click next and click save. And that completes the workflow, now including our as found and as left results data. Ticket number 16748, table not saving collapsed columns. So if we come to instrumented systems, we select a SIF. If we come to the IO sensitivity, we can see we have a table here. If we collapse the mean time to failure column, we can see that that's now gone and it's automatically saved. So if we refresh the template, we can see that it's still not visible. If we want to bring it back, we can now see mean time to failure at the end here. And if we refresh the template, we can see that it's back there as expected. Ticket number 16357, device events, systematic failure versus random fail contributions to the failure rate. So when entering failure data for specific devices in the device event, the field failure type allows the user to select device failure, non-device failure, or NA. Currently, this selection doesn't matter to the failure count of the device and therefore the failure rate. So we're adding further logic to the failure count and failure rate of the device object that only includes the device event as a failure when the failure type field selection is device failure. So if we come to operate and maintain, underneath this SIF, we have an output device called test device 1. If we come to this output device and scroll down, if we look at the device performance data, we can see there's been no failures and no demands. So if we come to this SIF, add a demand event. Let's go for a creation date of 2020, February the 1st. We use that for the demand date as well. Let's change the demand result to fail with dangerous failures. And we'll uncheck include associated failures and click next. Let's select our output device, test device 1, and click next. Identify failures for this device and click next. Let's expand that device and set the as found to fail with dangerous failures. Date as found, February the 1st. As left will be pass. Date as left, we will have February the 28th. And we'll set the failure type to device failure. And click next. And then click save. This has created a background task to generate a demand event. We'll wait for that task to complete. That's now completed. So if we come to that demand event and click finalize, that's now been finalized. So if we come back to our device and scroll down, we can now see that the number of failures and the number of demands has increased for that 5-year period. So let's come back to the SIF and add a fault failure event. Select a date. This time we'll go for 2022. And we'll go for the 1st of February again. Let's select failed with dangerous failures and click next. Let's select our output device, click next. Let's expand this output device. As found, fail with dangerous failures. Date as found. February the 1st, 2022. As left, fail with safe failures. Date as left. Let's go for February the 28th. Failure type, device failure, and click save. That's again created a background task. Now that background task is completed. If we go to the fault failure event it's created and come to the fault failure event approval tab, we can self-approve this event. If we come back to our device and scroll down, we can see that only the number of failures has increased and not the number of demand events. So let's come back to this SIF one more time. Add another demand event. Let's select the 1st of January 2025 for the creation date and the demand date. Let's set the demand result as a pass. Let's again uncheck include associated failures and click next. Select our output device, click next, and now click save. That again would have created a background task. If we now come to that newly created demand event and click finalize, that's now been finalized. So let's come to this output device, scroll down, and we can see that the number of failures has not changed, but the number of demands has increased by 1. Ticket number 16753. Request for users to be able to clear LOPA consequence, category and severity. So if we come to the LOPA module and come down to a LOPA worksheet, if we come to the applicable values, we click on edit. For the category and severity, if we set it to 3 major, save changes. That's now saved. If we click edit again, we can now come back, click on the drop down, select this top option, which is blank, and that will clear the category and severity. Let's just save, and we can see the severity is now clear.